Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. And today I'm so excited to introduce to you Jen Stevens. And Jen is a New York Times bestselling author and podcast host known for her books Fast, Feast, Repeat, and Delay, Don't Deny, which have inspired countless people to embrace intermittent fasting for lasting health benefits. She lost over 80 pounds by living the intermittent fasting lifestyle, founded thriving online communities, and now leads two top podcasts, Intermittent Fasting Stories and Fast Feast Repeat. With a Doctor of Education degree and 28 years of teaching experience, Jen is passionate about helping others transform their lives through practical science and her personal story. Jen, thank you so much for joining me today.
I am so glad to be here.
Just so everybody knows, if you go to look up Jen's name, it's spelled Gin. Is there a story behind that? I'm curious.
Virginia.
Okay.
I will say, my mother loves to drink gin.
I was gonna say, but that's not where the name came from, huh?
No,
Who knows?
There was an Aunt Virginia somewhere up the tree.
Okay.
I was named Virginia and always have been Jen.
Oh, that's awesome. Now you're an author. We'll just start off with there. You're an author. You've got two books that I just mentioned, but you have other books besides that as well. If somebody was going to start intermittent fasting, try to figure out what this whole thing about, which book would be a very best one for them to start with?
That's a great question. And I'm recommending, upside down, Delay, Don't Deny is the one I would recommend. I first wrote this at the end of 2016 and it came out as 2017 was hatching, and I revised it in 2024. And it's not a long book, but it's really everything you need to know to get started. And we're busy these days. People have a little bit of time. This is the book to read that'll get you started, tell you everything you need to know to get going. Now, if you want to dig in more deeply, that's when we've got Fast, Feast, Repeat, and you can see.
And now you were a teacher also. Did that help you with writing the book? Does that?
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming you're a born educator.
It's true. And my gift is to teach people things. That's what I was born able to do. Yep. And I taught in the elementary school for 28 years. I taught adults in my county, and I worked for a couple of online universities. But now I'm just teaching differently. I'm teaching people how to implement an intermittent fasting lifestyle in a way that works for them. And it really comes through. I have a book, 28-Day Fast Start Day by Day, and it is so school teachery. It's got like reflections.
Okay, now is school teachery, is that a real word?
You know what I meant, but yeah. I understand one thing is, as a teacher, we understand that people learn in different ways, right? And so that's, I think, one reason why I have so many resources out there. I've got the books. Some people, they just read Delay, Don't Deny. They get started. That's all they need. Yep. Some people are audio learners. I've got the podcasts for them. Some people need a little more step-by-step guidance. That's where the 28-Day Fast Start comes in. I've got an online community for people who need accountability. I've just started a YouTube channel for people who are visual learners. So it's really everything come together. And also, teachers know people need repetition. They need to hear the same thing over and over again. You need to practice something. You're not going to be perfect the first time. Right. And understanding all of that has really helped me in my new role as an intermittent fasting advocate.
And speaking of not doing it perfect the first time, so you actually started doing the intermittent fasting. Did you do it perfect, or did you have stumbling blocks? What's some hard things that you had?
No, I did not start it perfectly. I wish I had. If I could go back in time and give myself my book, I wish I could. But when I first heard about intermittent fasting, probably somewhere around 2009. And at that time, there wasn't much out there. There were a few books here and there, a few people talking about it. Everyone agreed on one thing. Intermittent fasting only worked because it allowed you to eat fewer calories because you were eating in a shorter period of time. Of course, now we know so much bigger than that. It's not just because you're eating fewer calories in a shorter period of time. I dabbled from 2009 to 2014. I didn't understand about being fat adapted. I didn't understand about all the metabolic changes that needed to happen.
Yep.
I didn't understand about the cephalic phase insulin response, which I can go into in a bit. The clean fast, which is a term that I've coined along the way. And I was drinking my diet sodas, having a little latte. I would dabble. One week I would try a little fasting, and then the weekend would come, I wasn't doing it anymore. And that's not going to work. You're not going to be successful with that. And so I was never really an intermittent faster, although in my head, It made so much sense. I was someone who had struggled with yo-yo dieting for a while. I started my first diet when I came home from college with the freshman 15.
Right.
And ever since then, I was on that yo-yo, on that roller coaster. And then in 2014, that was a real turning point for me. I went on a family cruise. I had been off the scale for a while. I'd given up. And I just thought, this is what it's like to be in your mid 40s, right? And so I got home from a family cruise. I had seen the photos from that trip and I didn't even recognize myself. So I got my scale back off the shelf, got on it, and I weighed 210 pounds. I was obese.
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
like,
How tall are you?
I can't, I've got to do something. And so
How
I would
tall
like
are
to,
you?
I'm 5'5".
Okay.
So yeah, that's a great
Yep.
question to ask because it does put some perspective in there. But I would like to say that was the moment I started intermittent fasting and I never quit, but it wasn't. I turned to a really quick diet plan where you go get like injections. This was not the current injections. It was something else. It was HCG. And I started with that. And it was so miserable, such a restrictive diet. I was like, this is awful. I'm never doing this kind of restrictive plan again. And by the time August of 2014 rolled around, I had been doing some keto that summer, which did not work for me. By the way, my body does not like being keto and didn't lose any weight at all on that. And I said, you know what? I might try intermittent fasting one more time because, man, I don't want to eat keto. I don't want to do restrictive. I don't want to count anything. I just want to eat.
Right.
And so that August of 2014, I started intermittent fasting and I never quit again. And so I went on to lose 80 pounds and I've kept it off ever since.
So how much time is in your eating window?
I've done a lot of things along the way. Right now, I'm loosely about a 19-5 girl, which means I have about a daily 5-hour eating window, give or take. It depends,
Right.
how life is going. If you'd asked me in 2014 what I thought maintenance would look like, I thought, oh, my goal will be to have as long of a period of eating as I can to still maintain my weight. But after living the lifestyle for now 11 years without stopping,
Yep.
I wouldn't feel good if I had the longest possible window. I feel really good with about a 5-hour window.
Yeah. And you find out you don't think about food as much as you used to.
No, not at
Before I ever
all.
started doing intermittent fasting, it's like you're always thinking about when's that next meal, when's that next meal. But when you eat healthy in that short window, you can spend your time doing fun things, other things you want to do, and not just think about where am I going to eat, what am I going to eat, who am I going to eat with, and everything else.
Exactly. It turns
I
off
love
that
that.
food noise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you just brought up two things. One, clean fast. When people hear you say clean fast, what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, and some people get confused because they think everyone's clean eating, so they think that's part of the eating window. But the clean fast is during the fast. And I learned along the way. When I first started in 2014, I was not fasting clean because some of the concepts that I learned over the years, I had not been exposed to those concepts yet. Like I said, the cephalic phase insulin response. And I went on to lose my first 75 pounds. And then I wasn't fasting clean. I started having some weight regain. You know how it goes. People lose weight, they start regaining the weight. So I started having some regain. I regained about 8 pounds. And I was, of course, a little frustrated, but also that's how my diet history had always been. So then in March of 2016, remember, I'd been doing intermittent fasting now for a while. I'd lost 75 pounds, regained about 8 of them. The obesity code came out. Dr. Jason Fung's book, The Obesity Code. And I read it. And in the obesity code, he talked about something called the cephalic phase insulin response, which was new to me. And you probably understand it, but pretty easy to understand when you think about the brain and how the brain perceives things. So cephalic means brain. So let's imagine you taste something that is sweet. It could be honey, fruit, a diet soda, which is new to the modern era. Your brain says, okay, sweetness is coming in. And we know throughout all of time before modern times, if something sweet was coming in, it was going to have a glycemic load. It was going to be sugar. And your brain understands sugar means we're going to need some insulin because insulin helps regulate our blood sugar. So you taste that something sweet, your body pulses out some insulin. That's the cephalic phase insulin response. And what Jason Fung taught me is insulin is a storage hormone. And when insulin is high, your body is storing. It's anti-lipolytic. It's anti-fat burning. And when you understand that, you can realize, oh, I do not want to have high levels of insulin all the time. They've done some studies with little rodents, and they would test them, just give them a little sweet taste in their mouth, like artificial sweetener, zero caloric load. And they have the cephalic insulin response. Their bodies release insulin, even though it's a 0-calorie sweetener. And then they would cut the little nerves between the tongue and the brain so they couldn't perceive the sweetness anymore. Same thing, no insulin response. So there's something in the taste of it. So right at that moment, I understood that one of our fasting goals needed to be to keep our body from having an insulin response while we're fasting. And so that means you don't want to consume anything that your body is, or your brain is going to think is sweet. Food, of course, food causes an insulin response, something fruity. So you want to avoid all lemon, water enhancers, diet sodas, anything that tastes like food, cinnamon, anything that your brain is going to think is food coming in. So that's clean fasting goal number 1, keep your insulin low. Now, as far as clean fast goal number 2, we have to think about one reason most people start intermittent fasting is they want to lose fat. And so one of our goals, goal number 2, is we want to tap into our stored fat for fuel. And the way we do that is by not consuming anything that is going to be used by your body as fuel. We don't put butter in our coffee. We don't put MCT oil in our coffee. We're not using cream, even a splash. We're not using nut milks. So we want to have our body need to go into our stored fat for fuel. And fasting goal number 3 is we would like to have increased autophagy. And autophagy is a word that really came into the collective understanding in about 2016. The Nobel Prize in Medicine that year was awarded based on autophagy research. And one of the things that enhances autophagy is fasting. And autophagy is our body's cellular housekeeping, house cleaning system. When food is not coming in, when we're fasting, our body's okay, we've got some time. Let's see what's hanging around that's junky or not needed. And so your body can break down those junky proteins, things that are not needed. And that's the process of autophagy. So how do we keep autophagy going strong? We're not eating. That helps. And also we avoid sources of protein specifically, which means you don't want to have bone broth, collagen, any sort of protein, pre-workout, that sort of thing, creatine. You want to keep all that in your eating window. So when we remember our 3 fasting goals, keep insulin low, tap into stored fat for fuel, and have increased autophagy, we think, okay, what's not going to interfere with any of those? And so we stick to plain water, nothing added for flavor, plain sparkling water, not all those flavored ones. It's almost hard to find plain.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah. And black coffee, nothing added, plain tea. And by that, we mean real tea. And I'm telling you what, tea is the most confusing thing of all because there are so many things. If you go down the tea aisle, I don't know, I'm estimating 90% of it is not really tea. It's those herbal teas like lemongrass or chamomile and apple cinnamon delight, all of those things that are going to have a sweet and food-like flavor. We stick to the bitter flavor profile of black coffee and plain tea because a bitter flavor profile is not associated with an insulin response. So go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just saying, I've heard this a lot from people who have been trying to eat healthy, and that's all I have is my diet soda or whatever. Right. And that's exactly what they found out is even though there's no calories, your body is ready. And once the insulin goes up, that is going to make your glucose down and that is going to make you hungry. And so people are finding that when they eat these sugar sweetened beverages, artificial flavoring or whatever, they tend to eat more. And it just makes it harder. So if you could just stop that one thing, you're going to make your hunger so much easier.
It's amazing. And so after reading the obesity code in 2016, I had to change what I was doing because I had been putting cinnamon and stevia into my coffee. It was delicious. I had been drinking Zevia soda, which is a stevia sweetened diet soda, 0 calories. I'd been drinking flavored waters, and I was white knuckling it every single day to get to my eating window. And as I said, I had started regaining. I had regained 8 pounds. Right. So once I started fasting clean, it changed the whole experience for me. I was no longer white knuckling it. I lost those 8 pounds I'd regained plus 5 more. And I really think if I had not read the obesity code at that point, intermittent fasting would have been another failed thing for me. If I had not really developed the clean fast from what I learned from Jason Fung and started fasting clean. I got gum out of my fast, all of that. And so once I made the change, it changed everything. And I've heard that from thousands and thousands of people over the years. They didn't think that little splash of cream was a problem because they'd been told it wasn't. Or that herbal tea wasn't a problem. They'd been told it wasn't. But when they go to the clean fast, plain water, black coffee, plain tea, they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't want you to be right, but you are.
And that's the deal. Keeping your insulin levels low. That is when your insulin levels are low. That's what instigates autophagy. Like you're saying,
it's true. They're related.
Once you get your insulin up, it stops. Once your insulin goes up, you've stopped your autophagy. So it totally screws all that up.
Because again, insulin is for storing, and we understand it. Insulin is not bad. We know that people have to have it. You have to have insulin. Diabetics require insulin injections to keep their blood sugar stable, but we just don't want to have constant high levels all the time, because then we're in storage instead of being able to tap into our fat stores.
So when you intermittent fast, have you done like the OMAD, the 1 meal a day, or alternate day fasting, or have you tried
done
different things and then you came to? I know we've tried it all too. We're sticking with our little 4-hour window.
Here's a funny story about 1 meal a day. That was actually my first Facebook group that I ever started in 2015. Was the 1 meal a day Facebook group. And it was because I had been following Dr. Bert Hearing, who wrote the book, The Fast Five. I don't know if you've ever heard of him and his work, but it was a daily 5-hour window. And I was in his Facebook group. This is, like I said, in 2015. And people were trying to like eat as much as they could within those 5 hours. And open with lunch, and then I have dinner. And then I reread his book. And in it, he talked about his own 5-hour window that worked so well for him. And there was one little sentence that I noticed, and it said, you're only eating 1 meal a day. And that changed the way I thought about a 5-hour window. Instead, I used to have diet brain where you're trying to game the system however you can.
Right.
I can eat in 5 hours. Okay, game on. But instead, I realized he's not intending that we're going to stuff as much food as we can within 5 hours. He's thinking of 5 hours as maybe a multi-course meal spread out over a period of time. So I shifted my thinking about my 5-hour window and started the 1 meal a day Facebook group. And again, that was 2015. And it was really funny. We were the only 1 meal a day group on Facebook for a few years. And people would wander in and they'd be like, no, 1 meal a day means 23-1. It means you're having one plate of food within 1 hour. And I'm like, no, not here. It doesn't. So I caution people from thinking about the 1 meal a day as a really short, tight window. We don't want to do that every day. Now, some days you'll have life will work out and you'll end up with a short window, but we need to have balance. Our body tends to adapt to anything that's too restrictive over a period of time, even intermittent fasting. If someone did 23-1 and they did it every single day, your body's eventually going to say, okay, this is what we do. We're going to maintain here homeostasis with this window, and you're going to plateau a little higher than you might have wanted to. So we have lots of tools to fight against that. Alternate daily fasting, which you mentioned, which is great for the metabolic boosting. And the best description of ADF that I've got is in the revised Delay Don't Deny, based on working with so many people over the years how they've tried it and what worked and what didn't.
And that's where I've changed when I'm talking to people. I don't tell them it's the exact same reason. I don't tell them it's a window and they can eat anything, because the whole thing is trying to keep your insulin levels low. And that's basically everything is going to do that. And you're going to have that for the time that you're not eating. But even the time you're eating, if you're going to keep your insulin levels up that whole time, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So that's why I call it time restricted eating. I just say,
that's the scientific word.
Yeah, have a meal. Have a meal at the beginning of your window and have one at the end. Because I personally, when we started looking at the OMAD for a little bit, but I can't get enough protein that I needed to have, so I broke it up into 2 and maybe a little snack in between, all in the window, but all protein and fat, mainly the whole thing. For that reason, if you are trying to build or have increased protein, you may have to go do 2 meals.
Yeah, and it all depends. It depends also. Women, men, your age, so many factors. And one thing that is cool to keep in mind is how great our bodies are at recycling protein during the clean fast. So I wish we could quantify exactly how much protein our body is recycling
Yeah,
behind the
really.
scenes when you're
Yep.
fasting clean, because that variable is important, but I don't know how we could possibly quantify it.
Yeah, I don't either. And Jason,
Uh-uh.
'cause it's funny you said Jason Fung. That was the first book that I read too. Jason, his obesity code, then his
Yep.
diabetes code,
Yep.
and then Ivor Cummins on cholesterol. And do you know Ben Bickman?
I'm familiar with his work, Why We Get Sick. That
Yes.
taught me how hyperinsulinemia, I said it wrong. Hyperinsulinemia.
Yeah.
There we go. High levels of insulin all the time.
Yeah.
Is linked to so many problems,
Yes.
not just, we just think of diabetes. You hear
Right.
insulin, you think diabetes. No, everything is
Right.
linked to this state
Right.
of metabolic dysregulation.
And just like you said, people think insulin diabetes,
Right.
but they don't. They think sugar diabetes. They don't even
Yeah.
realize how insulin goes into all this. So that's the other thing that I'm trying to educate people is don't just look at your A1C. You can do
Oh.
People on these GLP-1s, their A1C is coming back down, but that doesn't mean anything because GLPs make your insulin rise, as well as the other things that GLPs do as
We
well.
encourage people to get a fasting insulin
Yes.
and also a fasting blood glucose at the same time, because then you can find your HOMA IR score, which is your insulin resistance score. And we had somebody in my community the other day, went to her doctor, said, I want a fasting insulin and a fasting blood glucose and an A1C. And the doctor said, no, fasting insulin and fasting blood sugar are worthless. All you need is your A1C. And it's like, because I read a great paper written by, I think it was a nurse practitioner who wrote it, that said, we're measuring the wrong thing, that fasting insulin is the leading indicator. And you can have a beautiful A1C for years while your fasting insulin is getting worse and worse and worse. And then eventually, bam, your A1C is going to go too. But if you were tracking fasting insulin, you would know that ahead of time. But that doctor was like, no, that's ridiculous. You don't need that. And so there are a lot of amazing doctors out there, but it's really frustrating. I mean, I'm a school teacher and I understand it better than that person's.
And I don't blame them. Like I said, I've been a doctor of pharmacy for 35 years. I did not know this stuff. You're not taught it. Obviously, you're not going to be taught this by the drug companies or anything because you need their drugs. So you got to keep eating that stuff. But I didn't know until I gave that talk on childhood obesity 5 years ago. And that's when I first started looking in the nutrition literature. I've totally missed it. My whole life, I've been wanting to help people.
Yeah.
And I feel I have helped so many people in the last 3 years. After I started getting everything going than I did my whole time of being a doctor of pharmacy. I'm getting people commenting all the time. And it's amazing how awesome this whole nutrition is that really can reverse your diabetes, or get off blood pressure medicine, get off diabetes medicine. And it's great, especially like I said, when diabetic medications actually, the way they work is they focus on glucose. So they work by increasing your insulin, which makes diabetes worse. And that's why they tell you this is chronic and progressive. You're going to be on diabetic medication your whole life. If you go the drug route, you will. They are right.
True. Yeah.
But go nutrition route and you'll be off all of them very quickly.
And I was a teacher, like I said, I started teaching in 1990. And kids were not, I mean, we had kids that were heavy, honestly, in 1990, but not like today. And when I watched what happened, I retired in 2018, you could see children getting bigger and bigger, but I also can tell you why. I watched, they started bringing water bottles into the classroom, right? Yeah. We were like, oh, children need to stay hydrated. Instead of just having at the water fountain, they had water bottles. But guess what?
Full of juice.
Right. Those water bottles were not full of water. And so all of a sudden, the children are now basically sipping on either with water enhancers or juice or something constantly throughout the day. They're not drinking plain water. And also, I saw snack time come in more and more. These children, these elementary kids, it got to the point when I retired, you didn't even have to have snack time. Children could just snack at will. They were allowed to go get a snack at any moment. They might bring 6 snacks for the school day.
Yeah.
And eat all of them. And so the children are constantly keeping themselves in that high insulin state with the snacking. And it just, when you understand it, you see why.
How do you stay up to date? Because I know you're so busy with all your podcasts and your books. And how do you stay up with current things? Do you go to conferences? Is there certain people you listen to, or you just get a lot of your information from your clients?
What's really helped me stay up to date is answering questions. Yeah. As a professional, you learn the most when you're trying to answer questions people are asking. And you're well, let me figure that out. And honestly, having a community. When I was on Facebook, I don't run on Facebook anymore. I'm off of Facebook. When I was running my community on Facebook, we had 500,000 combined members in my groups, and they literally asked everything all the time. And if
Man.
I didn't know, I had to find the answer so I could answer them. So I've just taught myself by staying a step ahead. And luckily, you mentioned I have a doctorate in gifted education. I know how to research things. I know how to find reputable sources. My sources are not YouTube influencers. My sources are not Instagram influencers. I like to go to the scientific literature, and I might start from something, something someone says, and then say, what does the science say about it?
So do you go to PubMed or?
I do. I have found a wonderful new tool through ChatGPT, and it's called Consensus. Have you heard of it?
Consensus?
Consensus. It's inside ChatGPT, and you just download the Consensus app, and it only searches PubMed sources.
Really?
Yes, it is fantastic.
Oh,
And
man.
ChatGPT can just make stuff up sometimes. But, so I would not just go ask ChatGPT or Google, but if you go through Consensus, and the thing is that it links its sources. So it's not just hallucinating sources, it links the sources, and then you can actually go to them and see the original source. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm the kind of person that reads books written by doctors. By the way, did you know most of the books written by doctors were actually ghostwritten?
No.
I did not know that. I don't know.
Like
I think Jason Fung writes his own because it's in his voice. Yeah, I found that out. Most of the books with the doctor's name on it were written by somebody who's not a doctor, and they just put the doctor's name on it. Shocking. But it explains why I have always been the person to go to the source. Like, I remember reading a book about fasting, probably 2019. It was before Fast Feast Repeat came out, and it talked a lot about ketosis, ketones, and all of that. And there was something in there, I'm like, that's not what I think is true. So I checked the source. That was not what the source said at all.
Really?
So I'm the kind of person who finds mistakes in books.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know. I've done the same thing. I've done that because I'm a pediatric specialist. What I really did. That's what I'm doing my residency in. But I found that when we had a kid come in, we were trying to figure out what is this? How are we going to treat this? Going back and doing the same thing, go down to the works cited and follow that and go to the works cited. And when it gets down to the very last one, that was never said.
That's not what
it was never said in the very first article. What an eye-opening experience that was.
I even found something in a scientific journal that said something, and I was like, that seems weird. So I went one step farther, and it was they had reported it the opposite in their paper of what actually the other paper said.
Well,
I'm like,
that
okay,
makes a little bit of difference, doesn't it?
It's the opposite. Okay, exactly, but the opposite of what you said. So
That's right.
I think we have to be really careful just following influencers blindly these days, and fully understand that I am an influencer too. I don't want people to follow me blindly either. I want people to dig in and think for themselves.
In your fasting community, just out of curiosity, because you hear these stories all the time, is there any one story or a couple stories that kind of stand out? Like, this tends to relate to most people because of blah, blah, blah. Do you have anything like that?
So many. I just recorded
I can imagine.
episode 495 of Intermittent Fasting Stories.
That's crazy.
Yesterday, right? So we've got 495 hour-long intermittent fasting stories episodes where you can hear, and there's a common thread that runs through all of them, in that intermittent fasting has simplified their life. And not everyone comes to it with the purpose of weight loss. So we have people that came to it strictly for health benefits, but majority of the people that I talk to for my podcast, they wanted to lose weight, and they've been struggling with weight for decades, many of them.
Even when they eat by the food pyramid?
Maybe especially, I don't know. We did all the eat less, move more that we were told to do. And then we were told we were doing it wrong, and we must have been counting wrong. And clearly you were just counting your calories wrong. You're eating in secret. But we knew how hard we were trying. The common thread is that even though not everyone is going to lose all of the weight they think they want to lose, they'll get to a weight that is healthier and sustainable for their body. And even people who are like, I'm still at the high end of a healthy weight range. I'd like to be lower, but I'm still a little high. But I'm happy, feel good, and I'm never going to stop doing intermittent fasting no matter what. And that's what's true for me. I'll never stop doing it.
Oh, no.
Because I feel better. I'm 56. I feel better now than I did when I was 46, right? 36.
And that's the first thing. People go at it for weight loss. A lot of people do. But that's when they find out there's so much more. The things I hear is I have so much more energy than I
Right.
used to have. I can think
Yep.
clearer than I had, and skin clears up. All these skin conditions people had, all of a sudden the skin conditions are gone. I mean,
Absolutely.
and now I've got people who have IBS cleared up, rheumatoid
Uh-huh.
arthritis. They said you'll never get rid of it. Rheumatoid arthritis totally gone. Just obviously diabetes and blood pressure, that just goes along with it. But they're finding so many positive benefits like that. And it's like they say, you can't unlearn what you know.
It's true.
And if I start going back now and I start gaining weight, I know for a fact, oh, this isn't genetics. This isn't anything. This is my fault.
And
I need to
we
change
always
this.
know. Like I have people in my community and they'll be like, I put on some weight over the summer and I don't know why. And I always say, why do you think you put it on? They always know. That's a
Yeah.
school teacher trick.
That's
Ask
right.
a third grader, why do you think that happened? They always know.
Yeah.
So people know when they really think, oh, I did have ice cream 4 times a week.
Yeah, exactly.
That could have been it. Yes.
It's possible. I don't know if ice cream affects insulin levels or not. So crazy. So if somebody was going to start intermittent fasting, what's your first 2-3 steps, common steps? You got to do this first.
You have to commit to fasting clean. If you're not willing to take the creamer out of your coffee, you're not ready to start fasting because you're on a low calorie diet if you're doing that. If you wake up in the morning and start sipping coffee with creamer in it, even if it's like grass-fed heavy cream, because you heard you could, you're not fasting. You're having very low levels of calories, and dairy causes insulin response.
Yeah. Okay.
Dairy is nature's perfect food for the time that mammals are growing the fastest. But I'm not anti-dairy by any means, but during the fast, I am.
You're in your window.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are not willing to fast clean, then don't fast until you're ready, because you're setting yourself up for it to be a lot harder. And I promise you, take the clean fast challenge, fast clean, and give your body time. We call it the 28-day fast start in my community. I have a book named that. And you're going to need to give yourself about 28 days because your body needs to become fat adapted. You need to deplete the glycogen, which is your stored sugar in your liver. You're going to need to deplete that sufficiently for your body to start getting into fat burning every day. And you're going to need to build up those metabolic adaptations to be able to fast. Interestingly, I know you mentioned you've got the low carb emphasis in what you do, but you know how I said I didn't do well with keto the entire summer of 2014. I lost 0 pounds and I didn't feel satisfied, but I was in ketosis. I had a breath ketone meter. Those you had to plug in way back then. It was one of the old ones, old school. And I knew I was getting into ketosis, but I was eating. I wasn't fasting. I was just eating so much fat. I was making all of my ketones from the fat I was eating. I was not burning any stored fat. But I started intermittent fasting that August, straight from low carb, straight into intermittent fasting. I added carbs back at the same time, but fasting was easier than it had ever been before. And I think it's because I was fat adapted, which you understand being from that community. So I don't think it's an accident that I was able to keep fasting because I was already fat adapted. And again, I added carbs back in my 5-hour window. That's what I went to at the beginning. And I started losing about 1 pound a week, even with adding carbs back. And I was still getting into ketosis during my daily fast because I had that ketone breath meter. And I'm like, how is this possible? But now that I understand about the liver and your glycogen and that metabolic switch, reading Dr. Mark Mattson's work has really been helpful. He actually had a paper called Flipping the Metabolic Switch. That was
Mark Mattson,
Mark
M-A-T-T.
Mattson. Oh yeah. Dr. Mark Mattson is amazing. He is, in my opinion, one of the premier intermittent fasting experts out there. He worked at Johns Hopkins and he has been an intermittent faster since the 1980s personally. But he wrote that paper, Flipping the Metabolic Switch, that talked about the liver and the glycogen and getting into ketosis and not having to be eating low carb in your window to still get into ketosis during the fast. And I really understood why, because people were like, that's impossible. But no, I can prove it. Here's my meter. You still are going to,
Did he Dr. Mattson, did he write a book or is this
He did write a book eventually. He's been on my podcast, by the way, Intermittent Fasting Stories, but he wrote that Flipping the Metabolic Switch journal article. Then in 2019, he was asked by, gosh, I can't remember what journal. Was it the Journal of the American JAMA? I can't remember. He wrote a journal article at the request of this major that's not the journal. It's escaping me right now what journal he was in. But he wrote an article about intermittent fasting because it was 2019. And doctors were asking, we need some support. We don't know. Our patients are coming in wanting to know about fasting and we don't know what to tell them. So he wrote this article at the request of the journal to summarize everything we knew about intermittent fasting. And it was all about the health benefits of intermittent fasting, the cardiovascular benefits, the neurological benefits, because his research emphasis was neurological. Right. And after that came out, it was actually really cool. It came out on December 24th of that year. And he made the circuit on all the talk shows talking about it, but it was from the emphasis of health benefits, not losing weight. And so I was still running my Facebook groups. And right after that, we had a lot of new people request to join. And we always asked, why are you joining? And it had always been lose weight, lose weight. Suddenly it was health benefits,
yes,
health benefits. And his book is called, let's see, I've got it over here. The Intermittent Fasting Revolution. He wrote it in maybe 2021, something around there. And I will admit to you, it reads like you're reading a medical journal.
That's fine. I'm used to that.
But it's got great research. So for anybody, if you're looking for something a little easier to digest, delay it on tonight. But if you want to dig into a research scientist who has written journal articles his whole life, Dr. Mark Mattson's work is what you want.
And it's funny you brought that up about he's in more the neurological, because that's the other thing that's so cool now that people are doing this and they're keeping their insulin levels low. And again, Dr. Bickman's book, Why We Get Sick, is all about this too. But that we didn't realize how much insulin and high glucose and inflammation is affecting our whole neurological state, our dementia, Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Yes. And then our gut bacteria that's making these neurotransmitters, and those are getting all screwed up, and it just cycles over and over. It's amazing where people are still live as long as they can. Our bodies are so amazing. What God's done with us is crazy.
It's true. But lifespan is going down.
And we're going to do what we can to change that.
Absolutely. It's not going to be more drugs. It's not going to be.
No, that's going to be the last thing it is. And I don't even know, a lot of people, they may not even realize it now. Alzheimer's, and a lot of the papers you read, they call it type 3 diabetes for that exact reason. And that's why
it's insulin resistance in your brain.
When you are talking to your people on your intermittent fasting stories, I'm sure they come up, I'm sure they're asking about, what am I going to do if I have to go to a party and there's a bunch of food there? Or what do I do if I'm not in my window and I get hungry? What can I eat? What kind of stuff do you tell them in those?
Well, the thing about hunger is not an emergency, and it passes. When you're fat adapted, your body knows where to get fuel. Even a very lean person has thousands of calories of stored energy on their body.
1 pound of fat has 4,000 calories. Think of how many pounds of fat we have. We have
plenty of calories. Yeah. Even someone who is at a healthy weight has plenty of stored fat. So your body is able to tap into that if you just give it a minute. Once you're fat adapted. Now, again, I'm talking the first 28 days when you're not fat adapted, you're just gonna have to white knuckle it through. Let's say I might have a wave of hunger around 11 in the morning. I don't open my window usually till about 2 or after 2 at some point, but I might have a little wave of hunger at 11 and I'll note it. Interestingly, I don't wear CGM frequently, but I have worn them in the past. I would notice when I would get that morning wave of hunger, that was right when my blood sugar was getting down to 73, 74. And then I'd have that wave of hunger and I picture it as my body saying, all right, if you wanted to send something down, you could.
Yeah.
And of course I don't. And my blood sugar would just stay steady. It didn't just keep going lower and then I would die. No, it would stay steady in that range and the hunger would pass and I would feel better. And then eventually I opened my window when it was time. No big deal. So the hunger passes. It's not an emergency. It doesn't build and get worse. You don't have to carry snacks around in your purse like I used to do. Oh my God, there's hunger. I've got to stop it. When I actually think back to my life before intermittent fasting, I fed every hunger wave that came along.
Oh.
I woke up in the morning and I had breakfast. Then I would go to school and I would have a latte. Then I was hungry and I needed a snack. Then I was hungry and I needed another latte. Oh, by now it's lunchtime and I'm hungry again. So I was trapped on that blood sugar roller coaster and I kept getting hungry. And I had to feed it. It only was using what I was putting in. But now my body's like, hungry. And I'm like, nope, not right now. And my body's like, fine. And then
It's
people
don't worry.
say,
I know where I could get some food
hey,
for you.
body, use some
That's right.
stored fuel, whether it's glycogen from my liver, if that some of that needs to go,
Yeah.
or whether it's some fat that I ate a little too much fat last night, get some of that where it's been stored away.
Yeah.
Our body can do it. As far as the other part of your question, if you've got a party, that's the beautiful part about having an eating window. You shift it around to suit what's going on. I like to think of my daily 5-hour window as something that can slide around. I can move it earlier, I can move it later, but I feel better when I keep to about that window length.
Right.
Now that I'm in maintenance, one day if there's a brunch and it's at noon and I might have an 8-hour window that day, no big deal, but I don't do that very often. It's
Right.
even like on Christmas Day, it's funny. We get up and have our family morning Christmas, and I definitely begin eating early. Maybe I start eating at 9 or 10 on Christmas Day because I've made cheese and sausage balls that we love that are our family tradition. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so full. I've had plenty to eat today. And I'll look back and it's been 8 hours. It felt like I've been eating for a million years and it was 8 hours and I'm done. Yeah. So it really does just become how you live. And you can't imagine going back to eating all day, every day.
And that's what we tell people. Is it kind of depends on what food is at the party. If you think you can eat some healthy things, then that's your window. But if this is like a kid's birthday party and it's all cake and everything, eat before you go.
We call it window worthy. If it's window worthy.
I like that term.
I've gone to parties before and not known if I was going to eat or not. And because intermittent fasting, you're very empowered to decide what you're going to do. I'll go to the event, look and see what there is and say, oh, that looks amazing. That's window worthy. I'm going to open early. Or I'll say, no, this is not window worthy. I don't want to have that.
Right.
And there's no kid's birthday party that's going to have window worthy food.
That's right. And you also, the psychological thing, a lot of it is the other thing, like if you get hungry before, first thing we say is get sidetracked, go do something else, take your mind off of that, and you will be amazed at how all of a sudden the hunger was gone. Or go ahead and drink just a little bit of water, or drink some decaf coffee or something like that. And a lot of no sugar, none of that stuff, just plain bitter coffee. But a lot of times that can handle that also. So we have people do different things like that. When you're in your window and you say carbs, what are you talking about? What would be your standard meal that you would tell people?
I'm really more on the plant-based side. I am not plant-based, but I thrive on more and more plants. So I eat beans, real potato, like a whole potato. I do great with starchy carbs, real food carbs, and I eat less meat. Like I don't eat meat every day.
Really?
Yeah, I don't eat meat every day, but this works really well for me. I eat eggs.
Yep.
Dairy.
That surprised me. I'm surprised you said that.
What?
Especially with the potatoes, carbs.
I do great with potatoes.
Yeah, fruits and vegetables, and that's what we tell people. If you have trouble.
Yeah, fruits and vegetables. Potatoes work really well for me. And I really understand with bio-individuality, what really changed a lot about what I understood about food and how we're all so different. It was in 2017, and I was working on my second book, Feast Without Fear. I self-published that one as well. I rarely talk about that one because looking back, it's my least written book. It's a little clunky. Like I don't love the way I wrote it, but I was researching, and it was back in the day when we were 2017, keto was really big. And people would come into the Facebook groups and argue about what you should be eating. And there was a train of thought that unless you're eating keto, intermittent fasting is not going to work for you at all. And I'm like, clearly that's not true because I don't eat keto and it works beautifully for me and I do great. So I was researching to figure out, I'm like, surely there's one best way for everyone to eat. And I came across the work of Dr. Aaron Segal. E-R-A-N is how you spell his name, Dr. Aaron Segal. And he is an Israeli researcher, I believe. And he had a TED Talk. I think it was a TED Talk. It was a talk that he was giving. And I found it on YouTube. And it was like, what is the best diet for humans? And it was the first time I'd ever heard anyone talk about CGM, I believe, and the glucose monitoring. And they found that people had a personalized glucose response. Like some people would have a crazy glucose response to white bread, where someone else would not. Someone would have a high response to ice cream, but someone else would not. And it has to do with so many personal factors, including your gut microbiome, other things, your genetics. And I was like, oh my gosh. And that's when I learned that the glycemic index was an average. They took 10 people, saw what their blood sugar did and said, that's the number. And I'm like, wait a minute, that could be really different for you. Might be someone that you have this much response, whereas someone else is that much. So I learned how to really trust my body and how I feel, and wearing a CGM several times and just understanding that we're not all going to have the same response. And it
Right.
also taught me that really, if you look at every single diet book out there written by somebody that tells you prescriptive, here's what you should eat exactly, I'm like, that's what works best for that author. I'm not going to write a book that says everyone should eat a baked potato every day, because
Right.
for some people, a baked potato is not going to work for you at
Right.
all. But for me, it's one of the most satisfying things, and I feel amazing after I eat it. So it's all about figuring out what works for you and trusting. If it's real foods
Right.
and you feel great after you eat it, that's a good sign. It's the
Right.
ultra processed foods that don't work for anybody.
That's that you need, no matter who you are, whether you're in
Mhm.
your window or out of your window, keep man-made food out of your body.
Yeah, but God made that potato,
Yeah,
and I've got
that's
those
right.
Irish roots, so
That's right.
and
And
my
it is.
Irish ancestors were putting butter on there too, so
I do. We put butter on everything.
yeah.
So what are you doing now? What new projects are you working on? Do you
I'm
know?
working
Do
on a
you
new
have
book. I'm not going to share the title yet because I'm
Ah.
keeping that one under wraps, but it's going to be about food, obviously. But it's really about people have lost the connection to real food.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you know about GLP-1s, and everyone
Mhm.
they've lost their satiety signal because they're eating food that can't possibly provide it. And
That's right.
there's so many reasons why we don't have satiety from this food. Barbara
Mhm.
Rolls has done a lot of good research on that, about what leads to satiety for people. And there's just so much information out there about real food and eating real food. And yet we're choosing these ultra processed foods because they're easy and convenient, and the door
Yeah.
dashing and all of that. And if we really start to eat more like our ancestors, like they eat in the blue zones, like people traditionally ate before all of these ultra processed foods, yeah, it takes more effort. Yes, it takes time. We can change just a few things, and the food is so delicious, and it's going to satisfy you, and your
Yeah.
body is going to produce what it needs to let you know you've had enough. You don't
Right.
need a drug for that.
And that's where a lot of people do when they start doing intermittent fasting, or even if they go to, say, carnivore or something, they still eat the same food, and or they stop eating that food, but they still have that every 3 hours, I'm gonna be hungry. Every 3 hours, I've got to eat something. So they eat this food, this good food, the healthy meat,
Mhm.
fat, and things that actually keep you full and do affect your satiety center.
Right.
But then 3 hours later, they feel like they need to eat, so they eat again. And so, like the first couple of days, they're like, I'm just stuffed all the time. I can't eat all the time. You're not supposed
Your
to be
body is
eating all the
telling you you've
time.
had enough.
So it's like actually a good thing.
And I think it's really telling, the only mammals that
Mhm.
struggle with obesity in the entire world are humans and the animals we feed, because
Yep.
it's not the natural food. There's never been a squirrel out there wondering what diet is best for him.
Right.
Now, I
Yeah.
heard my squirrel influencer, and he said,
I know.
nuts are out.
We are the only animal that has to be told what to eat,
Yeah, exactly.
and we
Because
never used to. We never used to. That
if we just ate what was around us in
Yes.
season and
Yes.
available, we would be
Yes.
fine.
It's exactly right.
But we don't do
A
that.
and when you do that, you find, because if you're obese, you gotta be more strict. If
True.
you're pretty
Your
much right where
body's
you
got
need,
problems. Yeah.
so you can have those moments if you go somewhere and you wanna have cake for a birthday or whatever. It's not gonna kill you when you are already where you wanna be, but it's when you're not there that you think, why can they do this? If you just think, as soon as you get down to your goal, you're going to be able to do that too. Because a lot of people think this is the way I am. And like you said, but once you start doing that, you don't want to eat the other way.
It
You
does.
just,
Yeah, it changes you completely. And
yeah.
as far as like the time that it takes in healing your body, I like to use the analogy of walking into a forest, right? So when you walk into a forest, you're in the forest, you walk deeper and deeper into the forest. Think about that as your obesity. You're getting deeper and deeper into your metabolic dysfunction. If you decide you'd like to leave the forest, you don't just bam, you're out of the forest. You got to walk back out of it. And you got to go all the way back out. And so healing your body takes effort,
Yep.
and you have to go back out of that forest. It's not just going to happen instantly.
Right. And people, it is so worth it. If you are on any kind of medication, especially if you're on what we call maintenance meds in the pharmacy
Right.
department, you're taking it every single month. Every single day you're taking this med, you're going to be taking it forever. If you are on that, realize that you do not have to be. You can get off that. Don't just stop it, depending on what the
Right.
med is. Let your doctor know. You don't have to ask for his consent, because chances are he's not going to know about nutrition. That's nothing about physicians. I understand exactly where you just get in your realm and you've studied that. And unless you have a reason to go out, like your own unhealth, which a lot of physicians are extremely unhealthy, I forgot where I was going.
Just that we were saying, get off your medications and
Yeah.
talk to, let them know what you're doing. But understand that we're not meant to be sick and unhealthy. Our bodies are meant to, and all this metabolic dysregulation is just based on, we're not supposed to eat 10 times a day. Who eats around the clock? Babies. What are they doing? Growing really fast. We don't need to do that. Our bodies are not growing.
Yeah.
Now, so we need to keep our insulin low. Newborn babies, they need to eat every few hours. They're storing and growing, and we are not.
And when you start doing this, you find what's bad is this used to be a treat. If you had a dessert back when I was a kid, I was born in 62. When you were young and we had a treat, it was a dessert. And that's all you had. Now you're outside, you're playing, you're running around all day, and then there's a dessert and you make it. Now people, it's like they don't even have pleasure anymore, because you can have anything you want anytime. You can eat, if you want to eat cookies all day long, you can eat cookies all day long. And a lot of people do. Brownies, all this stuff. And you lose, it's not fun anymore, just something that you do. So you don't even appreciate it. Once you start going on intermittent fasting and you start eating this way, when you do have something like that, I forgot that this is really good. It's more pleasurable.
Yeah, but you're not going to eat a cheap cookie or gross cookie, a grocery store cookie.
Yeah,
no,
nothing with seed oils and all that in it.
We call it becoming a food snob.
Yeah.
You're like, that cookie is not, I'm not eating that one, but that one I'll eat.
Make your own. That's what we say. If you want a dessert, make it. You want brownies? Fine, make it. Again, keep it in your window and all that with everything else. But if you make it and you just swear, I will not eat that man-made stuff. Right. And if I want something sweet, I'm going to make it. Bring my family and we all make it together. Make it a good family fun thing, and you're not going to eat all the time there. So it's not going to be as big a worry as just.
I love black bean brownies. Have you ever had black bean brownies?
No.
They're so good. I like them better. They're more satisfying. I'm sure you can imagine. You eat a black bean brownie and you feel like you've had something, and they taste delicious. I know it sounds like it might be gross, but they're so good.
I've never
I don't
heard
make
of
them often though.
We've tried so many more foods that we never ate before. I love it. We're discovering all kinds of things.
Love it.
But okay, so that's your new project, your books. Is there anything, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, if they tell them how they can get to become part of your community? That's something we didn't talk about, is the community.
The community is such an important piece for so many people. They need that daily accountability. They need to be able to check in and ask questions. And so you can find me by going to jenstevens.com. Jen is Gin, like gin and tonic. Stevens has a PH. jenstevens.com. And there's a link there to my community, or you can go straight to jenstevens.com/community and you can join. It's not free. It's very inexpensive for a community like this, though. It's $9.99 a month if you join. And we found that's a low enough price that anyone who wants to join can join, but it's high enough to keep the trolls away.
Exactly.
People who would go on Facebook and cause all sorts of trouble are not going to pay $9.99 to come in and
start bad mouthing everybody and everything because their lives are up.
No social media problems. It's just a very lovely community, and I'm there every day. And the members support one another. And we have members there who eat all styles. We have people who are whole food plant-based. We have people who are carnivore. We have people who are standard American diet. But what we have in common is we are supporting one another as intermittent fasters to figure out what works best for us. And if the only thing you change is intermittent fasting, the rest will come. Eventually, you're going to start being a little more choosy about what you're having in your window. That fast food isn't going to appeal like it used to. You're going to find yourself craving Brussels sprouts when you've never had them before. So almost universally, we find people do change their taste in food as they become more in tune with what their body needs.
It's funny you said that, just real quick. Do you know where they first, as far as I know, that's kind of the first time that they figured out that the microbiome is that's what makes you have your cravings for different things?
Yeah.
Have you heard about this, about the fecal transplants?
Oh, yes. I wrote about that in my 2017 book.
Yeah.
I did.
Crazy?
The lady who had a fecal transplant and then all of a sudden gained a bunch of weight.
And go ahead.
That was one study specifically that I talked about in 2017. She got a fecal transplant from someone who was obese and she was healthy weight. And then all of a sudden she started gaining weight.
Yep. And then the opposites happened also. They
Yeah.
were giving the fecal transplant to these recipients. And once they did, and they were doing it to cure up their inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, with these inflammations. And the recipient started having cravings for the food that the donor
Yeah.
ate.
Because
And
the
that's
gut
when they started looking
microbiome
into
is
it. Yeah.
sending you the cravings for what they
Yeah.
like. Exactly.
So if you eat crud, your microbiome is the type that feeds off crud, and that's going to make you crave that. If you
And
eat
you can
healthy food,
absolutely shift your gut by changing what you feed it.
and it goes back to the same thing. And once you do, you can't go back. Once you know it, you can't go back.
It's
It
true.
just,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine becoming obese again. It just doesn't even.
No, because we've got the tools. We know
Yep.
what to do. And I've got my honesty pants.
Yeah.
It's been summer here. I've been wearing my big floaty dresses, but this morning I had a hair appointment. It's cold in there. So I put on a pair of jeans. I haven't worn jeans for several months. I'm like, oh, they still fit.
Oh, good. Happy day. Everybody can stay around me now. Jen, is there anything else? Thank you so much for being on this podcast. Is there anything else, any final words you want to say or tell anybody before we sign off?
I would just encourage everyone to be their own study of one. And if you're looking for conflicting information, you can find it.
Oh,
If you want to talk yourself out of something or into something, you can literally find somebody saying the opposite of,
right.
of every other thing.
Yep.
So this is what it means to be your own study of one. When you try something and you feel better and better, trust yourself. Trust as your blood work's getting better. Trust as you feel younger and you feel better than you felt in decades. And don't get sidetracked by watching something on YouTube that scares you. There's always something coming out about fasting. When
Oh,
you
I
dig
know.
into it, there's nothing there. But people are like, oh my God, I read an article and it said, "All right, let's look at that. Let's dig in."
Yeah, yeah. That's great. That's great advice.
Yeah.
And man, if you haven't tried this, definitely try it. Just have a window that you eat in, and don't eat anything outside the window.
Yep.
Plain water, plain unsweet coffee, unsweet tea, depending on the tea.
Yeah, real tea.
That's
Real
right.
tea.
That's right. And just see how you start feeling.
Exactly.
So Jen, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and have a fantastic week. And as always, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life.